Hello, church. So good to be with you, and I hope your summer's off to a great start. A couple of things. We want to thank Papillon Market for the decoration changes here in our studio of Take 5. We're so grateful for their thoughtfulness and generosity. They're great people supporting the ministries in Haiti. We also want to give a huge shout out for an amazing hot week we had at youth camp. It was just incredible. 140 kids, more than 30 counselors. Just an incredible week. We came back and celebrated that with baptisms, which is always a good kingdom win in the church. So huge shout out to Jason Arnold, his team, and all the great work that they did last week. All right, so let's get going with 1 Peter and what's happening. It's one of those passages that just makes us a little bit uncomfortable. It says this in verse 18, "Slaves, in reverent fear of God, submit yourselves to your masters, not only to those who are good and considerate, but also to those who are harsh." Now, we just need to pause right there. Already we have a disconnect, right? We're like, it makes no sense for anybody to submit to a harsh master. I personally don't like submitting to evil people, to unrighteous people, to people that just kind of push my buttons. I mean, I'm not a big fan of doing that. But he's going to circle back to why we do this. In verse 19, "For it is commendable if someone bears up under the pain of unjust suffering, because they are conscious of God, aware of God. But how is it to your credit if you receive a beating for doing wrong and endure it? But if you suffer for doing good and you endure it, this is commendable before God. To this you were called." You were called to this, right? "Because Christ suffered for you, leaving you an example that you should follow in his steps." Verse 22, "He committed no sin, and no deceit was found in his mouth. When they hurled their insults at him, he did not retaliate. When he suffered, he made no threats. Instead, he entrusted himself to him who judges justly. He himself who bore our sins in his body on the cross, so that we might die to sins and live for righteousness. By his wounds you have been healed." You have been healed, right? So there is no earthly wound that you can endure for which you have not already been pre-healed of that. "For you were like sheep going astray, but now you have returned to the shepherd and overseer of your souls." When I read this text, it instantly forces me to go to another text. So I invite you to go to Matthew chapter 5 in the Beatitudes. And we see right at the very end of these Beatitudes, it says this, "Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. So here's what I want to say about all this that's going on here, is that there is a word that we have for suffering for good, and it is called persecution. And what's interesting to me is that I often think to myself, if I am doing good, why aren't we more persecuted? Like, I mean, nobody stops me on the way to church to check and see if I have a Bible in the car. Nobody raids our church on Sunday mornings to try to break up our meetings. Why? I mean, the things that we think we're persecuted for in America really is soft compared to the rest of the world. So there is this conscious thing of where submission is not the same thing as surrender, right? So when we surrender to the Lord, it enables us to surrender to all kinds of things that we don't necessarily like, but we do it, why? For the call of God in our lives. So here's one of the things that I think we struggle with is this whole concept of slavery. And I think we need to understand that in that day, slaves, as I've said many, many times before, came in various forms and factions. Some of them were conquered peoples that were brought back into the Roman state in order to serve. Some were people that literally could not eat and take care of themselves. They sold themselves into slavery. Some of these people actually were people who were handed down as slaves. So when we see the word slaves here, we need to know that it's a vast and wide array of people. It's not just like slavery as we understood it here in the United States. So it is, you had the potential to have a good master and a bad master. right? So what Jesus is saying is, listen, as we said last week, being good is the standard for what we do. But when we suffer for being good, then we suffer as Christ did, who suffered in his goodness for us. One of the things we laugh about at church all the time is we say, no good deed goes unpunished. And you may know this is true in your life as well. It seems like the more good you do, sometimes the harder and more difficult it makes your life. But it is no less empowering to realize, as Paul tells us in Galatians 6:9, do not grow weary in doing good, for in the proper time, you will reap your reward. And this is essentially what Peter is saying here. Same kind of thing. Stay in the game, endure suffering, because in the proper time, you'll reap your reward. Church, I hope this is helpful for you in absorbing and realizing what God's will is for your life. I'm praying that you have a great summer. We're excited about the new series on Daniel that's going to start this coming week. I hope that you'll tune in and catch that. Be blessed, my friends. We'll talk to you soon.